Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and Texas House Speaker Dennis Bonnen held a press conference in Fort Worth today. They said they want to pass legislation in January when the legislature convenes that would freeze the property tax rate of any city that defunds police. Here to talk about this is Travis County GOP Chairman Matt Mackowiak and Glenn Smith from Progress, Texas. Thank you both for joining us.
Sure.
Matt, Governor Abbott argues defunding police endangers residents. Therefore, cities that do this shouldn't get more property tax dollars. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a strong move by Governor Abbott today. This is a sign that the state is not going to stand by while cities like Austin act in ways that are not just irresponsible, but are dangerous. It's not like violent crime hasn't been getting worse in Austin. Our homicide rate, our murder rate over the last year increased at the fastest rate of any city in the country. Aggravated robberies and robberies are both up 14% year over year. We know that in 2019, violent crime increased 16%, the fastest increase in 5 years. And so somehow our city council and our mayor decided to vote unanimously to cut $150 million, more than a third of the police budget. It's a disastrous decision, and this is a sign that, again, the state, the governor, the lieutenant governor, the legislative leaders are going to say, no, you cannot raise property taxes if you're going to act in ways that risk public safety, which Austin leaders have done.
Glenn, as Matt just mentioned, the city council voted to slash APD's funding by $150 million. $21 million will immediately be redirected to EMS and programs to address violence and homelessness. Do you support the city, and what do you make of the state's threat?
Yes, I support the city, and I think if Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick really cared about the lives and safety of Texans, they wouldn't have let 10,000 die so far in the pandemic. Look, film mongering never solved a crime or kept someone safe. Just the opposite. It leads to discord, suspicion, and tears at the social fabric. It's dangerous political pandering. And by the way, in this particular instance, is Abbott not going to serve as the paid agent for unions, using the power of the state to undermine local negotiations, disenfranchising local voters and taxpayers? Is he going to do that for all unions or just police unions?
Matt, the state got involved when Austin repealed its homeless camps at light ordinance last year, but the problem still hasn't been resolved. Should the state be taking on cities that want to defund or redirect funding when it comes to their police departments?
Well, look, public safety issues don't end at a geographic boundary. And so cutting the Austin Police Department is going to affect the entire Central Texas region. It's our state capital. It'll affect state buildings. It'll affect state employees. It'll affect the Capitol. Look, this is a disastrous decision by the police department. I believe 80% of people in Austin oppose this $150 million cut. This is not about reform. If it were about reform, that would be a different conversation. This is using, an axe to try to do something, and cutting the budget by 1/3 will make our city far less safe. It'll make our police officers, put them at greater risk. And so again, the governor is saying you're not going to raise property taxes on your residents at a time when you're cutting services, and that's effectively what they're doing.
Okay, Glenn, I'm going to give you the final thought. We're almost out of time.
What does Abbott mean? I mean, what's going to qualify for this freezing of local tax rates? I mean, most cities like Austin are going to reallocate this money to free the police to focus on crime instead of finding lost pets or providing mental health services best left to mental health experts. There are just as many police in Austin today as there was 2 weeks ago. So what's going to qualify as to meet the Abbott's criteria now to freeze the rates? I think this is a ridiculous political message with no teeth, and you ought to drop it.
Something about the